You're listening to the 95Podcast from the team at 95 Network, where we host conversations specifically designed to support leaders in small and mid-sized churches.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the 95 Podcast. I'm Dale Sellers, Executive Director at 95 Network. And man, I hope you're having a great week. We are now well into the spring, and hopefully you're catching some fish. I know I am, and that you're just having a good time as you have finished up or working, sort of getting close to doing Easter. And hopefully you're experiencing just a thaw, not just in the weather, but even in ministry. I know things have been tough and difficult over the past couple of years, but I'm looking forward to hearing great reports of what I hope to be just a new push towards salvations happening in our churches, and I hope that happens in your church as well. On today's podcast, this will be one of the more unique podcasts that we've ever had. I have my dear friend Evan Silver with me today, and Evan's not necessarily in ministry, but he uses a ministry tool that we are going to talk about that really works well in his setting. So, Evan, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. When you said it was unique, I was like, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? So I'll just go with this.
I'll let you know. I'll let you know when we finish. You and I have been friends for a while now. I know one of the things that I admire was, you and my friend Brian did a lot of bass fishing together. And then I had a chance to bring you down to the river. And you didn't really catch a lot of them, but I showed you how to catch a lot of fish at the river.
Yeah, we caught so many. I was like, I'm losing count at this point.
That was fun, and hopefully I'm going to do that again this year. Anyway, today you're using VisionDay. You are a trained VisionDay consultant, but you're using it in a completely different setting than we have used it in the past, and we want to get into that in a little while in the podcast. But before we do that, I would love for you to take some time and just kind of tell your story, let people know who Evan Silver is, and then we will dive into the specifics of what I wanted to cover today.
Yeah, so I appreciate you having me on the podcast. This is such an honor. I have my own podcast, and it just feels weird being on this side of it. So if I talk too much, just cut me off. But I kind of like sum up my life after high school in three sections. So right after high school, I played in the band. I did that for 7 years full time. I made hundreds of dollars during that 7.
And you're a guitar player, right?
Yeah, I'm glad you got that. Hundreds of dollars.
Hundreds of dollars. A big rock star.
Yes, I was living the dream. And then in 2012, I had an opportunity to go have a position at my local church, and it wasn't something I really sought after, but being on the road for so long, I was like, wait, I go to the same place every day. Wait, I get health insurance, like, all these things. I was like, this scene, and I just got married a few years before, so I took the position, and I loved it. I love being in church. I've been in church my entire life, since I can remember. Mm-hmm. And we were doing big things, and we were moving fast, and I love that atmosphere. And I took a different positions during the time, but fast forward to like 2018. My wife and I during this time we're trying to have our own child, biological child, and it just wasn't happening. And so some friends of ours came up to us and said, hey, have you ever thought about fostering to adopt? And I'm like, no, I'm not. I like, this is hard enough. I feel like that would be even harder.
Yeah.
And God had different plans. And so we adopted 2 children through foster care. And so here I am, 2016, 2017. Working at the church, I have 2 new kids. They were 6 months and 2 years old when we got them. In 2018, I just left the parking lot of the church one day, and I was like, God, what do you want me to do? There was different positions. There was some shuffling and inside the organization. I was like, what do you want me to do? And remember, we have 2 kids. Mm-hmm. And every Sunday, I see my wife dragging these 2 kids into church, and she's getting them ready in the morning. And I was just like, I feel like I need to be there. I feel like I need to be there in the mornings to help. And so I was like, God, what do you want me to do? And it was clear as day. He said, I want you to be the best father and husband you can be. Good. I was like, well, I was looking for something a little bit more specific. And
that often conflicts with being in a church.
Yeah. So my wife, we started a salon in 2012. So I don't do hair, obviously. So I was like, well, to be the best father and husband, if I could work together with my wife, and we would have the same days off, and that would help me at home. So I went home and talked to her, and she was like, hey, I think we could do this. We'll have to change our lifestyle a little bit. So in 2018, the first week of September, I started a new position at the salon. And 2 days later, we adopted both of our children. So I had a life change and career change all in 1 week. And the church was so, so gracious to me. I went to my supervisor at the time, and I was like, I feel like I need to tell him, hey, this is my next step.
Yeah.
And they could possibly be like, okay, well, we're going to go ahead and just let you go. You know,
and that's a real possibility sometimes.
It's happened in the past, Dale. So I was like, I feel like this is what I need to do. He looked at me dead in the eye. He said, Evan, you've served this church so faithfully. You could be here for another 1.5 years if you need to be, because I needed to save up some income so I can make that jump. So they were very, very gracious to me. But just going, like, I thought I was stepping out of ministry because I thought having that church name tag was everything. Like, that's how you, and I'm telling you, Dale, I have been in one-on-one situations with people whose marriages are on the rocks, or they're going through a tough season, things that I can't even imagine. And so I'm there it's ministry. It's there to walk them through and the tough times. And now I travel and coach salons. I know that sounds kind of like that exists. Yes, it does, because a lot of salon owners, they don't know how to run a business. They know how to do hair good. Yes, they don't know how to run a business. And we both know, like, when it comes to leadership and culture, like, if you're not seeking that out and being a student of it every day, like, people just don't know how to lead people. They're good at hair. They go start their salon. They don't know how to do business. And now they have 10 employees, and they don't know how to interact and lead with them. So I had a passion of leadership and culture, and now I travel around to salons across the country and teach them how to run business and how to be better leaders and create a culture where, because the pandemic shook things up. I heard it shook things up in the church as well.
It really didn't affect the church at all.
Not at all.
No problems here.
But it shook it up where people were like, hey, why am I at this salon? Like, I'll go to this one. Or I'll go, because it's just like churches. They're all vastly different. They got different cultures. So salon owners are like, wait, I'm losing people. Why is that? And I'm like, hey, you don't have any vision for your company. You don't have leadership. Like, you don't have the culture where people are like, I'm going to stay put here because I know that my leader is for me. And I think that's the biggest key.
Well, I know we saw that in the church. We're still seeing it in the church, even as this podcast is out. And I guess it's fair to say now we are maybe on the backside of the pandemic. We are certainly not on the backside of the effect of the pandemic. More so in the church, I think, than in other arenas of life. But it still has its effect. And I keep seeing these things, like there's these thousands of people who just aren't going back to work. And I'm like, well, how are they making a living? But that's another podcast for another day.
Yeah.
But you and I, we became friends probably through Kevin. I'm assuming it's through Kevin, our mutual friend Kevin Smith, who's on our team. And you and I started getting together and having lunch together. I think, you had reached out and just said, hey, let's connect. Is that what you remember?
Yeah. So this is what it was like. And maybe a lot of pastors or leaders listening to this were like, yeah, I totally understand. When I was worked at the church, I was under some great leaders, Kevin being one of them. He's a mentor to me to this day. And when about 3 weeks before I came to the salon, I was like, wait, I'm not going to have anybody there to like push me to be like, hey, Evan, you could have communicated this better, or you could have done this. Have you thought about this? So the first thing I did was like get a lead team in our company. And I started creating the culture back then. It's better than it was, where they would do that 360-degree leadership where they're coaching me.
Yeah.
So Kevin was one of those guys. And so like, I said, I have to seek out mentorship. I have to seek out time with Kevin, time with you and other people in my life, because I need that community, because doing leadership, if you're like a salon owner or if you're a pastor in a church, like it can get lonely. And when you're doing it, when you're getting lonely, you should stop and be like, I'm doing this all wrong, because people should be with me. And so that's how we connected. I was like, okay, I've got to connect with some people that I respect, and Kevin respected you. And I was like, well, let's reach out to Dale and get lunch with him.
Yeah, and we've had several lunches together. And I was thinking, between Brian and Jamie and Kevin, I knew a lot about you, but I didn't really know you that well. And as I get to know you, one of the cool things I think that I observed very quickly was you were a leadership sponge. You were like, man, and so we could talk about leadership principles and things like that. And as we began to do that, I began to recognize, and I already knew this, leadership's leadership. It doesn't matter if it's in the church or in your salon world or in business. The principles of leadership are true across the board, because, and I have made this statement many times, all good things are from the Lord. It doesn't have to be in a, sacred, or, this whole thing of sacred and secular really isn't a biblical concept anyway. Everything in the world is for God or against God. And so when you find something good, when you find a good leadership principle or a good habit, things like that, that's from the Lord. And so as you and I spent more time talking, you began to inquire about Vision Day. Well, what kind of led you down that road?
Yeah. So I read a book by Donald Miller. Was it? What was it? It's the Blue Book.
I read the
Business
blue.
Made Simple. The blue one.
Book
The blue, like it's super
not
blue.
The red one and not the orange one.
Yeah, the red one's Story Brand. So, I read it, and he talked about the plane analogy, and I use this when I do my workshops. Is you have your staff in the cabin, and you as leader are pilots, and you have to let your people know where you're going, why you're going there, and what's it going to be like when we get there. Because if we got on a plane right now, and the pilot said, "Hey, we're not going to your destination. We're going to go somewhere else," everybody would panic. They would freak out. and I go around, and I was looking at companies. I'm like, yeah, what's the difference between you and the salon that's, 300 yards down the road? Like, I mean, there's so many of them, just like in churches. I'm like, what sets you apart? You need vision. People need to know why, especially after the pandemic. They need to know why they come in the front or the back door, wherever, which way they come in. Why are they showing up? If it's just a cut and color hair, that's not big enough. There's got to be a bigger vision. So we started with this in our own company, and our vision for our own company is to impact people through beauty. So that's why we give back to the community. That's why we don't look at, you have 6 people on your schedule today. You have 6 individual people. And if you dig down, like we've had people who have lost people to suicide. We've had people that just found out they've had cancer. And so I'm like, that's ministry. Like, we're connecting with them, even though we're not sitting there and like praying with them in the salon or reading scripture or anything. Like, we're walking them through. I want them to know at the end of the day that Silver Salon, the name of our company, Silver Salon, is for them, and that we're doing good in the community. That if we shut our doors tomorrow, there's people going, not like, oh, where am I going to get my hair done? They're going, wow, they were a big part of our community. Are we there yet? Absolutely not. But it's just building blocks.
Well, using your analogy with the plane, I fly a lot, and I can't fathom the thought of, getting on a plane. I've got a trip coming up in a few weeks to Missouri. Getting on a plane, and about halfway on in flight, the pilot comes on and goes, "Folks, we just really have no idea where we're going. We'll just land. We'll run out of fuel." That's the way most churches are led. It's just like, we have no idea where we're going. We're just going to keep going till we all just finally get to a place we all are fried or tired, or we have a split, or, so much in our area of the country here in South Carolina. So many of our churches, if we do the research, we'll discover that a lot of them began as church splits. And the problem with that for me is that when you begin as a split, you have splitting in your DNA. It wasn't about mission or vision. And so, I'm 60 now. I got saved when I was 7. So I've been in the church my whole life. And for 53 years, I've been a Christ follower. There's never been a time until the last 10 years where I remember churches even talking. Now, the big churches did, But the average church, they never talked about having a mission or vision or understanding things like that. You just went to church because you went to church because you went to church.
Right.
Those days are gone.
Mm-hmm.
And you have got to have clarity on not just who you are or your core values. You got to figure out where you're going and what does success look like. So when you help a salon, what for you at the, when you do a vision day, and we're going to walk through what you do at the vision day in a few minutes, but you do a vision day with them. What is success for you when you've gone work with a salon? How would you define success in that?
Yeah, so that's different because everything in our business is profit or culture. Which one's better? Which one's greater? I'm like, they're both. Like,
Yep.
If you don't have profit, then you don't have a company, and if you don't have culture, then you're probably not going to have profit.
Mm-hmm.
I got an email. I went up to Virginia and worked with the salon, and I got an email on the way back on the plane ride, and she said, "Hey, thank you so much for today. I was about to give it all up, like close the doors,
Mm-hmm.
and you inspired me, you inspired our team, and I'm so excited about what the future holds." To me, I'm like, boom, bullseye.
Yep.
Like that is success. It's like just giving. And Dale, here's the thing. And it's the thing with leadership. I mean, leadership's simple if you like read it and understand. It's hard to do sometimes, but the questions, and this is how I base my coaching, is I want to answer the questions people are asking.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, right. And there's great coaching companies in the salon industry. And they have great things, but sometimes I see that there's other companies that are not, they're answering questions that nobody is asking. And especially during the pandemic, people are asking different questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that's the same thing in the church. The church is answering questions that no one's asking. And so you have to get down into the trenches with people and figure out like, what are people really asking? And so that's when I go into with their staff.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll walk around and ask them questions and talk to them, and I'll start to figure out like what's going on in the company. But success to me, when I go into a company, is for the leader to be equipped, for her to identify like what are action steps
Mm-hmm.
after today,
Mm-hmm.
and for her to or him to be equipped after that day. And so then I go ahead and schedule my next follow-up. I'm like, I don't say these. I'm like, hey, what are your top 3 action items?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they just give me one. I'm like, look, if we can conquer one,
amen.
Boom. Yeah. But they need to come up with 3 action items. So next time I'm there, and the Vision Day helps with that. It basically gives us a layout for probably the next year and a half of what I can coach on, help them work through.
The question has always existed as long as I've been studying leadership, which has been for 30 years now, is, are leaders naturally born? And there is a gift. The Bible lists a gift in Romans 12 of leadership. So there are people born with a natural gift to lead, but anybody can learn how to lead. It doesn't matter what the setting is in. You can become better. You may not be, on a scale of 1 to 10, you may not ever be a 9, but you can be a 7 all day long. But the thing about it is this, you talked about answering questions that no one's asking. For me, one of the most disturbing things that I saw during the beginning of the pandemic was I know several pastors who had already planned out their sermon series for the year. And so here we are. I think it was like in late February, early March, when they asked us to not meet in person, and the pandemic kicked in. And then you have all this national everything. You have the fear, you have the cultural issues, you have the racial issues. You've got, should I get a vaccine? Should I not? All that stuff. And I watched some pastors just preach the series they'd already planned for the whole year. And I'm like, you can't be that out of touch with people. There's people here thinking they're going to die because they're going to get this virus. And there are people who are trying to decide what to do about getting vaccine or not, meeting in person, not. And you're just preaching. And again, I don't want to diminish the value of preaching God's word. I appreciate that. I think it's important. I think it's, and the word is alive and powerful and sharper than a sword. But man, it works better if you'll preach on issues that people are dealing with. I just kind of discovered that. When you work with leaders, because you do coaching as well, have you seen that same kind of thing happening in your world?
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of bouncing off what you're talking about, there's times I sit in the service and, they're talking, and I think about my coworkers, I think about what if they're here? Because I know some of my coworkers that are going through a tough time.
You talking about with service? You mean sitting at your home when you're attending church?
Yes.
What you meant?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes. And I'm like, well, and sometimes I feel like it can be like, that's the struggle I have, is like, I know people that are going through tough time. And I can't just say, well, God's got this. I can't just say, hey, God's got this, because some of the people, I can't just assume everybody's a believer either.
Nope.
And so that, as a Christian, you know how hard that is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it strengthens my faith, because I can't be like, well, I'll pray for you.
Yeah. I remember, even when there was in the 80s and the 90s, we had this quote unquote hyper faith movement that happened, and people would be like, someone would get a bad report, a bad health report, and people would look at them and say things like, well, if you just had enough faith, the Lord would heal you. That's not what they need to hear right there. They need to know you love them and you care about them and you're standing with them. And so the point of us kind of doubling down here is we've got to make sure that what we're putting out isn't out of touch and just simply uncaring when we do what we do, whether we're leading in a church or whether we're leading in a secular environment, which, again, I don't necessarily believe there's a secular or a sacred. I think everything we either do is for God or not. But your ministry is probably more powerful now that you're not working in a church.
Yeah. And one thing you said that has stuck with me, and it stuck with me, but I didn't realize how long it stuck with me, if that makes sense. I remember being in the care room with this guy, and I remember him telling me he went to other churches and he came here and he told me about the situation. I think it was something that had to do with his marriage. His wife was leaving him. And I was like, hey man, I'll be honest. I don't have really the words to say. That situation sucks. He just popped up and looked at me. I'm not saying do this in your care room.
No.
He popped up.
Pastor, don't get up Sunday and make that part of your sermon.
He popped up and looked at me. He was like, I appreciate that. You're the first person to tell me that. He's like, everywhere else I've been, they're like, hey, well, God's got a plan. God's got a plan. What? And he was just like, I just need somebody to be like, you know what? And we had a bond. And I remember us meeting every week in the office. And so I do that with our staff. Yeah. There's times where, maybe it's in my male DNA. Like, I just want to fix things, or like, just be like, oh, we'll do this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, I'm like, hey, honestly, I don't have the words right now. That is a tough situation. And I love Bob Goff. And Bob Goff is like, instead of like being like, hey, what can I do for you? Or he's like, just go do something. Just go do it. Go wash their car. Go buy them groceries. Like, quit saying like, hey, what can I do for you? And just go out there and do it. Now, do I do a great job of that? Absolutely not. But it's something that's really inspired me on. And I feel like that is the gospel. That is the gospel. There's something different about that guy, Evan.
Absolutely. Well, being wired like you as a leader, I've always, I remember hearing John Maxwell say one time he wouldn't go to himself for counseling. Because he says, because when people tell him problems, he's like, okay, well, here's step 1, 2, and 3. Here, you're fixed. Leave.
Next.
And so, but he did make this statement that really stuck with me, as you said. The other thing stuck with you. He's always said this. He's, people don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. And so, caring for people, loving on people, meeting people where they are, even if you don't understand, opens the door for you to share what you do understand. But I think we've got the cart before the horse many times in how we communicate within the church world. And so, honestly, I'm excited for you. One, not just because you're working in a quote unquote secular environment. I don't like that terminology, but because you're also a leader in that environment. And so people are listening to you and see, this is such a stupid example, and you're especially going to love it since you're a South Carolina Gamecock fan. But, when we Clemson University, their football coach is Dabo Swinney, and Dabo is very well known for his faith and stuff. And I appreciate that. I appreciate his stand. But he also wins. Yeah. And I've seen coaches before in other teams and other arenas who they wear their faith on their sleeve, but they don't win and they get fired.
Right.
And so what I'm saying is care for people, love people, and accomplish what you're there to do. And it opens the door for you to really have a platform. And I think you've experienced that with what you're doing.
Yeah, I want to everything I do, I want to make a difference. I want to leave the salon or leave the environment wherever I'm at better. And I feel like the only way we do that is just to love people and connect. I mean, we've talked about John Maxwell a lot. I mean, his whole thing, I've been studying on like public speaking, and he says that all like what he focuses on is connection. You got to connect with the people. It don't matter. Like, yeah, your presentation has to be good, but when it comes down, you got to connect with people. So anytime I'm doing a workshop and the class is small enough, I'm going around and I'm talking to the people in the room. Because when I get up and speak, they're already going, oh, wow, I've already connected with this guy. So that's connection is key. And it's something that I'm learning. And the more like you connect with people, you're like, holy crap, this works. It works.
Yeah, I say that all the time. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break, and we come back. I want you to walk through a typical Vision Day that you do in that setting. Okay. So we'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Back with Evan Silver here, talking through doing Vision Day in a different setting than the local church. And Evan is a leader in the salon industry, and he is a certified VisionDay consultant or facilitator is the word we use. You actually learned the process, and so I'm just very interested. Walk us through a normal day. How do you do it? What do you do? And let's talk through some of the charts and stuff that you do.
Yeah. So one thing I've found out about, because I can sit at a conference all day. Like I can sit at a conference and listen. It does not bother me. With stylists and creative people who, especially on their feet all day, sitting down for 7 or 8 hours is a no-go.
I can't. I can't do it. I hate sitting that long.
If it's good content, I can sit there. But maybe that's something for my presentation. I don't know. But anyway, I start at 9 o'clock and I try to finish up by 2. And yeah, we go over a lot. Yeah. So I tell them, I actually shoot a video to the salon owner a week out and send it to their staff. And I'm like, hey, my name's Evan. Have you ever sat through a boring presentation? Well, I have. This is not going to be it. We're going to be moving around, group discussion. So that really, I've gotten a lot of great feedback from that video. So I'll walk in, and I already have the charts up. I took major pointers from you. And the first thing is I go through like, what's the history of the salon? And no doubt, there's always somebody in the room that goes, wow, I didn't really realize all that happened. Or I find out from 2020 to 2023 now that there's a lot of change that happens after the pandemic. And so that's very enlightening. And people are like, oh, okay. So then we move from there. And now we move towards what's winning, what's stalled, what is confused, and what's missing. And this is one where I've never had this, Dale. And I always walk in, I'm like, this could go south. Like you could get a negative Nancy in there and she could I've never had it. It's always been the most. And the salon owner, I will tell them, hey, this goes better if you tell them to be truthful. Like, and so they'll be like, hey guys, you got to be truthful.
Well, honestly, the day doesn't work if the people aren't truthful.
Right.
They didn't bring you in for you just to keep them doing and pat them on the back, keep doing what they're already doing.
Right. And that's why I tell them, you got to be honest. If not, you're wasting your time and you're wasting your money. So then we go through all that chart, and then they get to vote on what are the top 4 hurdles. And so then we put that on a new chart. And now I'm looking at the salon owner and I'm like, this is our game plan. Like, this is it. Like communication's always on there, always. So I'm like, hey, tell me what your communication is, and some of them are like, oh, well, we use group message on the iPhone, like a text. And I'm like, so every time somebody gives a thumbs up, everybody gets notified, and they're like, yes. I was like, oh my God, I would quit. So we got to get some. And the thing about it is they don't know what they don't know. I'm like, there's apps out there that will serve them better in communication. And then we move from there and we get their target demographic, because if you do a shotgun approach, you're going to miss. So I'm like, hey, we got to get laser focus. I'll be honest. I work in an industry where, it's going to non-gender things. And so this is something where it's like, okay, target the store, Nordstrom, all these, they have a target demographic. The target store demographic is not me. It's my wife.
Target being the department store.
The department store. It's my wife. It's not me. Cabela's, me.
Amen,
not my
brother.
wife.
Amen, brother.
And so
put my hand on my heart. There we go.
So you got to know, like, who's your target demographic? So we go through that, and then we list out, what does that target demographic value? And Dale, it's a lot of the same stuff. They value cleanliness, they value time. And so then they get to vote on the top 5 of those values that we all.
And the thing we talk about is we don't want you to put down what you want them to value.
Right.
What because in the church world, we'll typically, if you say, well, what is the people we're trying to reach value? We'll write down a bunch of things that they don't really value. So doing a vision day and being the facilitator, you double down and say, okay, don't write down what you want it to be, write down what they actually value, because it helps this next thing you're going to say do better.
Right. If you write down what you think they value, then you're going to be answering the questions they're not asking.
That's exactly right.
So then we go to a chart and we write out the top 5 values that target demographic has. And then we match that to their salon, to their company, to their church. And so, if it's cleanliness, all right, if I came through the door and I'm your target demographic and I'm looking through the lens of cleanliness, I value that. What am I going to be seeing? They're like, oh, hair on the floor, smudges on the mirrors, shampoo bowls being wiped down, how we dress, all this stuff, the bathroom. And so I just start writing it up, and it's just this, at this time it's flowing now.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, we got this. How, not as you as an individual, us as a company, how do we match up to this? Red, like, urgent. Red, like, we need to get on this quick. Yellow, we're aware of this, we're working towards it. Or green, we got this, like, we nail it. I had one salon owner, she said, Evan, the night before, she said, Evan, our team's going to put green on all of those. I was like, well, I've yet to have that happen. They put green on 1, yellow on 3, and red on 1. And I look over.
My goal when I do a vision day is that, honestly, churches have such, and you probably see this too, have such a hard time putting a red up there. So they'll go, can we put like half red and half yellow? Because they don't want to do that. But just to relate what you just said, if your target demographic has children and they're children in the nursery, they want a clean building.
Yes.
And what we do in the church world, and I don't know if it happens so much in the salon world, I think it does. We all just become comfortable with the way things are. Think like signage, we may not have a sign where the restroom is. And so a first timer comes in and they can't find the restroom. And I've heard this statement made. Well, everybody knows where the restroom is. No, they don't.
Nope.
And so that's the kind of things that you run into as well. It's just like, well, the smudges on the window or the hair on the floor or whatever it may be. Well, they're just used to that. And that's the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to get yourself outside of yourself. Sometimes, because we always come in the back door of our salon. There's times where I'll park and I'll come through the front door. I'll be like, man, there's a lot of leaves on these steps. We had a railing that was wobbly. I knew it was wobbly. I'm like, big deal. There's another railing on the other side.
That's not.
It's not.
Put a sign up. Everybody used that rail.
Well, you know what? We had customers saying, hey, that railing out there, like within like a day, like we had like 3 people. And I'm like, okay, that's what they value. Like they value like, hey, if this thing's wobbly, is my haircut going to be janky as that hand railing? You know what I'm saying?
And that may sound goofy, but it's so true.
It's so true.
Because people go, well, if you don't care about the railing, what else do you not care about? And that's the point of what you're saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's got, the experience starts in the parking lot. Like
Absolutely.
You're parking, the parking lot.
Say that again.
The experience starts in the parking lot. It starts with, if you have parkers or greeters, like smiling, you got like, those are your first impressions, and you only get one time to make a first impression. That's why we tell, a lot of in our industry, the front desk is kind of on the bottom of the totem pole, not in our company. They're at the top. Because if a new guest comes in, how long does it take to make a first impression? I actually do this in the workshop. They're like 15 seconds. Oh, it's 26. No, it's 22. And I'm like, okay, it's all less than a minute. We'll all agree on that.
Mm-hmm.
That's before they ever see their stylist. And that's all on the front desk. So those people have to be equipped. They have to have like scripts. They need to know, not like robots, but like how to interact with people. Like if you have people at your front door or parking people that are not people, like put them somewhere else, put them in production with me.
Put them behind the scenes. If you're first desk, and I see this all of the time, and this is not just in the church world, but I see where you'll go in and the first person you meet, they can't get off their phone.
Oh,
they're too busy scrolling through stuff or texting or whatever to even greet me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my goodness, Yeah. I took my dad recently to a doctor's appointment, and the person at the doctor's appointment didn't have enough time to get off the phone to tell us where to go. I had to get their attention. Oh.
Yeah. It's crazy. I was at a restaurant yesterday and I walked up. This is a pet peeve of mine. We're going off the rabbit trail. I'll get us back on, but they had an online order. It was kind of like it was not Moe's, by the way, but it was kind of like where they fix your food in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
And, so I walk in and they're doing an online order, and she looks at me and she's like, we'll be with you in just a second. And I'm sitting there going, I get online orders are important, but you have a physical person in the line. Like, you need to take care of me. Like, y'all need to get another line somewhere in the back for online.
Get on it, buddy. Get on it now.
Just a pet peeve. Like, take care of the people. So one thing that I think I learned this from John Maxwell, when people come to your church, they come to your company, you need to have the "we were expecting you" mentality instead of being like, "Oh, okay, oh, sorry," they're on their phone.
I've seen that before. I was at a church one time where one of the elders got up to bring the greeting, the welcome to visitors, and they never had visitors. And on this particular Sunday, they had a visitor, and he did exactly what you just did. It was just like, "Oh, here, let me." And he's trying to find it. It was so embarrassing.
Yeah.
And the other thing I want to make sure I mention here too, this happens a lot. In the church world, and this might be true in your world too, we are often very friendly with ourselves. So like if you and I go to church together, especially since you and I have, common interest in sports and outdoor stuff and fishing, that kind of thing, I want to catch up. Hey man, how did it go? Did you go yesterday? Did you get anything? And so what happens is we are friendly among ourselves, and we will totally ignore and don't know we're doing it, but almost rudely look at first timers and not even acknowledge them but then when we do the Vision Day, they'll tell us, oh yeah, we're one of the friendliest churches in America.
Yeah.
No, you're friendly with yourself and you're friendly with your own people. And it's sometimes churches can have, and you may experience this too, we almost have like this insider focus, we got the group, we got the clique kind of thing. And boy, if you do that, especially today, visitors will quit coming.
Yeah, it's the lack of vision. Like in our company, because I can't stand it when I go somewhere and the employees are talking to each other and like they don't engage in conversation with me. Mm-hmm. So we tell our team, hey, your first team is this team, like the staff. Mm-hmm. When at 8:30 in our company or at 3 p.m., we have 2 shifts in our company, that's game time. And now our vision is to impact people through beauty. So like having conversations between stylists is okay as long as the guests are involved in it. Like turn the chairs toward each other. Like that, people love community. That's one thing we're trying to do in our company is we have a processing area where people get color put on their hair, but they're like sitting like 3 feet from the other person across the table, and they can engage in conversation. And they're going, wait, you go to that church? My parents go to that church, or wow, your husband's a pilot. Like my husband flies for this airline. And it's crazy how small of a world it really is. So we're trying to do community with that. But back to the Vision Day, we do the target demographic, kind of see like how everybody is, how we line up with the target demographic. Mm-hmm. And then we're like, okay, what's the first thing we need to work on? Like, we're not going to do, here's a 20-step plan. Like, what's the first thing? And I'm not coming. Yeah.
Let me just tell you, I was part of a church many years ago, and I think they paid nearly $100,000. I mean, honestly, this was in the 80s. So it's even way back for a consultant to come in and give us a 20-year plan. And all we got out of that was wasting $100,000.
How do we know what's going to happen in 20 years?
We don't.
Jeez. I don't even know what's going to happen tomorrow. So then we move on to the vision and mission and the staff core values. And I actually share companies' mission statements. And and the crazy thing is they all get them right. Like
Really?
Google's, I share Google's.
Throw
I
some
share.
at us right now. Share some of the ones that
Well, I don't have
really
them. I don't have them on me, but I can get them right now. I'll
Yeah.
tell you, Delta's. I love Delta's mission statement. This is
What is it?
beautiful. Making connections.
Mhm.
You could be making connections physically through the airports, or you could be making connections with you. You know, you fly Delta. That's the
I
only
do.
airline I fly unless I'm going somewhere and I have to fly. Delta doesn't go there. I'm like, why am I going there?
Yeah.
But anyway, Delta, if you work for
Hashtag
another
Delta.
airline, or I'm sorry. But they will greet you when you get on the plane.
Mhm.
When I fly other airlines, I'll tell my wife if she's with me, I'm like, watch, they probably won't even speak to us. They'll be talking to another employee. But Delta, I guarantee you, they're like, hey, our mission is to make connections. So every person that gets on this plane gets a hello, good morning, good evening, whatever it is. And that is making a connection with them.
Yeah. There's one of the flight attendants we had. There's a African American gentleman. He's out of Atlanta, and I love it when you get on the plane with him, because you know how they always try to get you to speed up going down the aisle, and he'll do things like, all right, now we're holding up now at aisle at 16. You know who you are, and just and everybody's laughing. And I mean, he changes the atmosphere by creating community.
Yeah.
So, that was so powerful. That was so powerful. I'm going to say it one time. He changes the atmosphere by creating community. What would happen if we did that in our churches?
Yes.
You know,
And in salons.
and salons. Oh,
People were like, why is this salon owner on a pastor, a church podcast?
Because your leadership principles work. Because you are getting calls nonstop. I think you've done 7 or 8 vision days already, and you got a bunch more coming, because they recognize in that industry that what you're teaching works.
That's it's crazy how it just blew up. Like, yep. I have this weekend off. Next weekend, I'm gone for 5 weeks straight, or not 5 weeks straight. Sorry, 5 weekends straight. Mm-hmm. And then I'm off for a week, and then I'm gone for 3 more weekends. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is, it's one of those things. It's like, oh yeah, we got traction. Then you look at your calendar, you're like, whoa,
wow.
This has gotten,
they're embracing you because it works. And again, I think what's happening in a lot of churches on this side of the pandemic is everybody's still kind of staring at everything going, I don't really know what to do. Do I need to reach out and get help? Do I need to do a vision day? You know, do I need to bring in outside eyes? And the answer to that is yes. So I don't want to run out of time today. So let's make sure we finish getting through the rest of the process. So you just had mentioned that you talk about mission and vision, I believe.
Yeah. So before we go into the vision and mission, we do staff core values, because that's a little bit more simple. Like, hey, what are some things that we value as a staff? Mm-hmm. If we were hiring somebody brand new, what are some things we want them to value? And I've learned this a lot from Simon Sinek. He was like, honesty, just take that one out. Like, we want everyone to be honest, right? So like, just take honesty, let it out. So the ones that we came up in our company, we only do 3. And I really coach to 3 because we can only remember 3. Ours is radiate positivity. So like, when you come in, you need to not just be positive, but radiate positivity.
That don't always happen in the salon.
It does not, but we try our best. You know, some people don't come in at 100% every day. But it's us as leaders to have conversations and make sure that they're okay, and they're okay to do the job that they have that day. The second one is add value, basically serve, like add value, not only in work, add value on social media, add value in your community, add value in your family. So, you know, in a work aspect, and ours in the salon, like, instead of being in the back on your phone, like, fold towels, get on the floor, help someone blow dry, help someone shampoo, you know, do things that add value to the team around you. And the last one is better yourself. That could be better yourself as a skill. It could be better, like a technical skill, or physically or mentally. I mean, mental health is huge right now. So we got to make sure, like, we have someone in our company who went through a tough time mentally, and now she's doing so well. You know what we did? I was like, you're speaking at our next team meeting, because our team needs to hear from you. They need to see that when you had a breakdown in the back room and you're crying and you had to go home early, to where you are now, you're a powerful woman. You are a great wife. You're a great mom of two, and you come into work every day with a smile on your face and you crush it. Mm. What happened between there? So it's just empowering the people around you. So that's what I love about the staff core values is like, let's write these down. Let's make them actionable. You notice they were all actionable. Yes. Add value, better yourself, radiate positivity. Then we go into the mission, like, why do you exist? So I'm going to quiz you. I know we're tough on time, but I'm going to quiz you. Here's somebody's, now these mission statements are way longer than I really coach to.
We like for me short.
Establish as the premier purveyor of the finest coffee in the world while maintaining our uncompromising principles while we grow.
That's got to be Starbucks.
Yep, it is.
Just because it's too wordy.
We save people money so they can live better.
Oh, I know that one. I can't think of who it is though.
Walmart.
Okay, yeah. Well, see, I don't go there, so that wasn't that good.
And then to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful.
That's got to be Google.
Yeah. So you see, like the people in the room, they're like, yes, yes, yes. I'm like, when we say your mission statement, people need to go, that's them.
Good job.
And you got to live it out. It's not just something you're just going to put up on a wall, be like, yeah, it's our mission statement. It's every day. It's every day, every meeting. You need to be telling, hey, what's somebody who's been radiating positivity? Who's somebody that's been adding value? Who's somebody what's something that we did in the past month or two that we've hit our mission statement? We've impacted someone through beauty. So once you get that, that's the foundation, Dale. You know that's the foundation. And some salon owners are like, what have I been doing for the past 10 years? Like
they don't know. Don't know.
We've just been coming in and cutting hair. And I'm like, man, it's so much bigger than that.
Yep. All right. So where do you go from there? Because we are going to run out of time.
Yeah. So from there, then we get, I debrief with the salon owner. I'm like, hey, top 4 hurdles that we did earlier in the morning. That's where we need to start. And then the staff core values, the mission statement, if you don't talk about it again, it's a loss. People are going to forget tomorrow.
Yep.
And I'm like, you need to get that printed up. You need to put it in the break room. You need to talk about it in every team meeting. And then I follow up with them and within the next couple of weeks and just be like, hey, how's everything going? Because sometimes I don't get all the way to the mission statement. Like I don't get it just perfect. And I'm like, look, I got you 90% of the way there.
Yeah.
Like at your next team meeting, you're going to probably wake up between now and then in the middle of the night and be like, oh, I got it. Something that, because you want it to roll off the tongue well, but you don't want it to make it so flashy that it's not.
Your mission statement is not a brand. It's not a slogan. It can be used as a brand or slogan, but it just describes why you exist. And if I come into work with the church and I have one thing that I want to get accomplished, it's that. To help them understand why you exist. Because if you ask most churches when they gather on Sunday morning, why do you gather on Sunday morning? They'll say, well, it's church hour. That is not a mission,
Yeah.
And so helping churches understand, why did God raise you up in your community at this time and put you there? Same thing's true in what you do. Why are you doing business in this community at this time, doing what you're doing? What is the deeper meaning? And when you can discover that, it changes everything. So this has been a good process for you, huh?
Oh, it's been amazing. I see the relief on salon owners. Like they're just, and I guarantee you there's a lot of pastors out there listening to this and they're going, I need that. We need that. We need to redirect, because how you were doing church, how you were doing business in 2019 compared to now is completely different. Our business model has changed so much. And people are looking for relational. They're looking for something that they're showing up and like putting, 10 years ago, you could put on a great presentation at church and people will be like, wow, this is great. Let's come back. Now people are like, yeah, everybody's kind of doing this. What's the relational factor? Are you going to be there? Is somebody come visit me in the hospital? Like things like that. And so I'm not saying the pastor needs to do all that.
No, but leadership is you raise up people to do it
Exactly.
because it's needed,
Exactly.
and so you do some coaching. You'll continue to coach them as long as they need you to do that. That's one element we've added to our Vision Day, to where we've got a guy named Greg Moore who's on our team now, and Greg has a year-long process that he'll come in very, very, very affordable to help guide you through, because typically after we've done a Vision Day, there's not a lot of anyone there to implement it. In a small church specifically, one of the things we're very well known for is not following through and then having no accountability. So you do coaching, we do coaching there, and you quoted Simon Sinek, and one of my favorite quote of him of all time is this. He basically says, it doesn't matter what means you use to get there if you have no idea where you're going. You got to know where you're going. And that's what we do. That's what you do. That's what we do with Vision Day. So you've got hundreds of small, mid-sized church leaders listening right now. If you were sitting down with them having a Starbucks and you had, just a few minutes, what's one word of encouragement or advice or wisdom or hope you would give them today if you were sitting down with them?
What you do matters. Like I say this to our team. Sometimes you just look at the people that are coming in. It's just like, oh yeah, that's Fred, that's Sally, that's Joe, that's John. Everybody's going through something, and God has placed you to where you are to make an impact in people's lives, for him to use you. That does not mean that you have to do everything. Dale, I love the resources you guys have here. You're here to help them and equip them. And if you're getting coffee with me, you're doing something right, because not because of me that you're getting coffee with people. Getting coffee with people inside the church and outside the church, I think is a huge thing, because it keeps you, I don't want to use the word relevant, because it keeps you grounded. Yeah. So you can like connect with people and see what's going on, because the more that you don't do that, I feel like you get a bubble around you, and you need to know what's going on in people's lives. And that's going for you, and that's going for me as well, because if I don't connect with the people inside of our company, then I'm going to lose touch. And it goes all back to what John Maxwell says. They don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Dude, I am so proud of you. You are killing it. I'm so thankful to see that the principles in Vision Day work in any leadership setting. And so I hope that our listeners today have been encouraged by just, seeing that you're doing it, and what you're doing is working, and you are making a huge difference. And just keep on getting it done, because the best is yet to come for you, because you are really doing a great job.
I appreciate it, Dale. I appreciate your mentorship and your words of wisdom, and always just being there when I reach out.
Thanks for listening to the 95 Podcast. We look forward to sharing another episode with you next week. In the meantime, visit our website at 95network.org. The website is loaded with great resources created for small and mid-sized church leaders. Until next time, have a great week.